lecture, we are going to investigate the concept of specialization. The concept of work specialization is the very basic problem a company has to face when organizing its activities. In particular, it refers to the division of work among different people and different organization units. To investigate work specialization, we need to ask ourselves two main questions. The first question is, why do we need work specialization? Whereas the second question is, what does it mean to implement work specialization? Let's start with the first one. There are actually two main reasons to implement specialization within your organization: complexity of activities and need of alignment of competencies and skills. For the former, when the activity is particularly complex, you need to split the work between individuals or units. For example, to guard into a basketball team, to be efficient, you need a point guard and a shooting guard. For the latter, you need to align competencies and skills required to perform an activity with competencies owned by individuals. For example, into a basketball team, you need people able to guard, but also people able to attack. About the second question, there are two main dimensions of specialization, that are horizontal specialization and vertical specialization. Horizontal specialization pertains to the split of tasks among individuals, to give to each individual a small number of activities to perform in order to achieve a common final output. For example, considering the basketball team, each player has a key role to perform in order to guarantee that guard as well as attack are covered. Indeed, vertical specialization pertains to the separation between the execution of activities and the design and control of the same activity. For example, into the same basketball team, you need people able to play, but also a head coach to coordinate the match. Different roles inside the company have necessarily different levels of both horizontal and vertical specialization. For example, a newly hired young internee is very likely dedicated to few specific and simple activities without any decisional role of that, like Excel analysis and PowerPoint preparation. On the contrary, a top manager is supposed to be involved in a lot of different activities with different level of complexity and with the possibility to design as well as control the activity, perhaps performing also part of the execution. In between, there is the middle management, that is in charge of controlling and coordinating young resources and performing different operational tasks, but is also evaluated and directed by the top manager. As a matter of fact, both horizontal and vertical specialization might bring both advantages and disadvantages. Horizontal specialization has as main advantage an increase of productivity due to, first of all, the learning curve that an individual might follow through the repeating performing of the same activity several times. Secondly, the saving of time dedicated to switching from one task to another. And finally, because of the possible adoption of technologies to perform the activity. Second advantage pertains to the simplification of each activity, thereby requiring less need of training for people and less need of qualified resources. Finally, the third advantage is related to the best use of individual skills. If, for example, one individual is very good in organizing and managing time, it is important for the organization to take advantage of this competence, without losing it with, for example, execution activities. On the other hand, a too much high level of horizontal specialization could imply, first of all, coordination problems, but also the motivation of people up to alienation. As Charlie Chaplin in Modern Time thought to us, when specialization is exaggerated, a lot of people need to be coordinated, also just for very simple tasks, and the people are totally embedded into the activity. Moreover, it is quite easy to understand that when the activity is really specific, there is a high risk of not saturating efficiently all the resources with a potential cost for the company. Moving to vertical specialization, this is directly driven by the horizontal specialization. Highly specialized workers' narrow perspective makes it difficult for them to relate their work to the final output and to others' works. Thereby, with a high level of horizontal specialization, a high level of vertical specialization is required too. The main advantages of vertical specialization are the possibility to have less qualified workers, as well as the better use of highly qualified workers in terms also of control and planning skills. On the other hand, vertical specialization implies the same disadvantages of horizontal one in terms of coordination problems and alienation. In addition, it is also important to notice that in this kind of environment might be extremely difficult to enhance innovation and creativity. It is for this reason that companies such as Google are willing to leave quite free and independent workers in order to foster their creativity without tying them into regulations and procedures.